Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Rachel.
How are you?
Gasping for air. Oh, it's so tough out here, Rachel. It's hard to breathe.
Okay, that's one way to do it.
How about yourself, Rachel?
Oh, it's hard, but you get on with it.
It's hard out here. By the way, we better blast through this podcast recording because I have to vacuum the house. See, now I've got a smile out of Rachel. You can't see that, listeners, but you can hear the smile. At least I can when I listen back.
And if you have deliberately chosen to listen to this, you are here for yumyumpod's coverage of the Expanse, where the two of us are watching through the Expanse for the first time, doing episode by episode breakdowns of it, which are released first on our Patreon. And we are here to talk about a specific episode in season 5. But before we do that, we are obliged. You dictate.
That's right. You, the listeners, you yumlings out there, dictate this, demand it.
Drag them into this.
Deride us for not doing it.
Ryan.
That's me.
And also the etiquette of podcasts demand that we explain ourselves.
Yes, the etiquette of podcasts. That's my maiden name, actually. And so the demand is high. So, Yum Yum Podcast is the name because of a line from Star Trek Discovery that inspired us.
What season?
Season 2.
What episode?
The 13th, and it was the finale. It was Such Sweet Sorrow Part 2. It was 42 minutes in. And it was uttered by the character Lieutenant Nandi, who is a character so magnificent that when she
what
was
species?
she's a Barzan. Rachel's trying to get me, but you can't because I know too much about this character. And when I say character, I mean the best. So the best was asked the question, do you want to help me make the antagonist of the season scream?
That's not a direct quote for the uninitiated.
Yeah, for the uninitiated. But what is direct is this quote, yum yum. That's the reply. And Nan, Lieutenant Nan, licks her lips, throws her hair back, and sexily, breathily says yum yum. And we were forever...
Some of that is true.
Yeah, some meaning all. We were so thrilled to hear that line.
They can watch that clip. They can see the GIF that you made.
Yeah.
And have made readily available all over the internet. You've spread that out.
Fun fact, I didn't make the GIF of that one, but I will, you know what, I'll take credit for that. That's where some of it truth. I did the Walker Smith Babylon 5. I did the Babylon 5
you know
GIFs.
that you did. Okay.
Well, yeah, I know I did that one.
I thought you made one of the Yum Yum ones.
No, not at all. But Rachel is saying that we have covered a variety of science fiction here. Star Trek Discovery was where we started. Babylon 5 was where we followed through. Space Above and Beyond was a more recent one. And now we are doing The Expanse. And The Expanse, as you said, is a first-time watch for us. This is a first-time experience. So do not spoil it out there. Do not spoil it. We haven't read the books. We haven't played the games. We haven't participated further in the show than where we are right now.
This extends out to production stuff?
Oh, we don't know anything about the behind the scenes. Remember when Thomas Jane directed an episode? That was a surprise.
Excited.
Such a surprise. Such joy was had. And I am going to read now for us all the IMDb description, which is the same as the Blu-ray description for the season 5 episode that we watched.
They're not as fun as they could be.
They're not as fun as they should be, sadly. But we are up to Hard Vacuum, which goes as such. Amos returns to Baltimore with Clarissa. On Luna, Avasalara's alliances begin to shift. Alone and adrift, Naomi becomes a deadly lure. Here's where the fun really begins for the podcast. Yum Yum, although the title, with each show we cover, we bring a new Yum Yum point of view to it. And with The Expanse, what is the thing we bring? What is the aspect we carry with us?
The horniness. So each episode of The Expanse, which has become increasingly difficult, we note what got us hot under the collar, what made us feel a little bit horny. And I have my automatic Amos pick because Ryan got tired of me always picking something relating to Amos. So he changed the rules for me.
I didn't know I had to. You were cheating the system. You were just picking the same thing all the time.
I wanted to know what was making me horny, and it was always Amos.
But you would pick him when there was something more overtly correct.
But personal preference.
It is true.
I can ignore.
I don't even think we picked Holden in the first episode because he was such a wet sack of rice. We didn't like him, but if we went back today, we would make him always the pick because that introduction of him having zero-G sex with a nippleless woman, hilarious, magnificent. Oh man. And season 5, which we're up to, has had sex, you know? Like they've had nudity at least, and last season had sex on the screen. So the Amazon days of this series has increased the sexiness, but also made it very much a barren wasteland when it's not there. So do you have a pick from a regular selection, not just your automatic?
I was prepared for my automatic, so then we could discuss.
Okay, let's hear what it is. He didn't get too much to do.
No, he didn't, but there was a line that made me giddy, so I'm going to go with that. It's a long trip. I saw a case of tequila that maybe we should take some of that with us.
I will say Amos had a cheeky smile when he...
Yeah.
There was something someone said, and then it had a cut back to Amos, a nice tight cut back to him, and he just smiles and says yes, and then it hard cuts away from him. It was so fast of a reaction of him saying yes that it made me laugh a lot. I don't know if it made me horny, but it made me laugh. It was one in which Wes Chatham gave a certain line delivery that I feel he didn't think would make it into the final cut. That's my thought. Now, when it comes to a regular pick, this is hard stuff.
Mm-hmm. What's yours?
Ah, man. So, one of the previous episodes, it was very awkward when we chose the child.
Yeah.
And so it's awkward now when I'm choosing Clarissa Mao.
Mm-hmm.
Because... Yes,
you really
we saw
enjoyed
skin.
Watching her pee?
That's the thing. It's her peeing. But I'm really limited on choices here, Rachel. Because I won't lie. I saw the side of buttock and I was like, oh, great. Awesome. I reacted positively. I'm like, The Expanse. But then she was pissing and I was like, oh, that's not what I want. I mean, it's better than doing a shit, I guess. But like, this isn't what I want. But then I looked at the rest of the episode and I said, well, there's nothing. So I'm not going to lie to the listeners out there. I'm not going to lie to you. I saw that wide shot. There was a microsecond, a millisecond or whatever where I was like, ooh. And then I went, oh. But that ooh is more than any other moment in the episode. So thank you. I rest my case. No further questions. Do not interrogate this any deeper. And do not make any judgments about me for this, because you're a liar. You thought it too, maybe. I don't know. Rachel, thoughts on the Yum Yum for the episode? Clearly, you thought mine was very hilarious, but What do you have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What was it?
I can't think of anything else now.
That's right, because there is nothing else. What? A scorched up Naomi getting hot and sweaty in a spacesuit as she's suffocating. I'm not into erotic asphyxiation either. So, real hard pressed for this episode, Rachel. Hard vacuum did not make my vacuum hard. What did you actually think of this episode, Hard Vacuum?
It was pretty good. I don't know. You really broke me with.
We open pretty much on Clarissa Mao taking a piss. It's like one of the first things we get.
They're both taking a piss, but I find it's like they've agreed to face each other away from each other, but like they're still in the open. But Amos is I can't remember how close he was to the tree.
I wasn't paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Well, this is what we thought of the episode. The pee talk is here. Hard vacuum. You thought it was pretty good.
All parts of it were fairly solid. The Avasarala stuff less interesting. More like I feel like that's setting up more for next season, maybe, because it doesn't feel as important as the other stuff that's going on, even though it is, because I get why it's there, because like it makes sense that Earth might retaliate against the belt, not just Marco,
which is what Marco wants. He is riling everyone up into a conflict.
Yeah, like it's strong pillars. But it doesn't immediately have stuff that really grabs and holds me in the story. I look at it and go, yeah, that's good. Oh, they're doing that for this reason. Like, I am seeing the cogs turn more than feeling like I'm in the world.
This is my least favorite episode of season 5. I didn't like this episode. It's not to say that there's nothing good in it or anything bad per se, but the entire episode is very dull to me. Not that gripping, not that engaging, not that memorable. When we come to the end of this, I would say that this is the episode that will probably be the one that I have. Yeah, I'm taking the piss. Other than like moving plot stuff forward, I didn't really get much out of this. This is really a checking the boxes. This is a real.
There were a couple of moments that I was really like, but I think I'm gonna forget that they're in this episode. I really enjoyed the moment that they took to show Amos's reaction to Clarissa calling him Timmy. Those little things were the things that stood out to me and felt like they mattered most.
There's just a listlessness for me, and there are several plot things, like you said with Christian, for instance, and we'll talk about Holden as well, and Bobby and Alex and all that, in which they've come home to roost in a lot of ways of our season-long issues, in which we've had multiple characters with little stories that have been stretched out for the sake of stretching them out. Why are some of these told across 4 episodes rather than 2? Why are some of these one scene in one episode and 4 in others? Like, it just doesn't really have that cohesion. And there isn't enough juicy thematic things in this episode for me to give those a better, like, more of a pass like we did last time. Like, especially coming off the last episode, this one feels a lot less than. And I wanted to bring this up too. So This is the lowest rated episode of The Expanse since season 1. On IMDb. This is a 7.6. Everything else is been until from season 2 onwards has been higher. And
okay.
I don't know if I don't really care about the ratings too much, but I kind of feel like, yeah, this reminds me of season 1 quality in terms of how I feel about it, in which there's things that are good here, but it's not really making me that excited to watch the next episode per se. It's I'm not regretting that I watched it, but at the same time, Hard Vacuum is not one that's making me chomp at the bit to watch whatever happens in the penultimate episode of this season, like how the last episode did. The last episode made me really excited to see this one, not just because of a cliffhanger ending, but because we really got to sink our teeth into the meat of the matter, while this episode...
It's frustrating watching Drummer's plot in particular, because a bunch of it is she thinks Naomi's dead, and the woman who is from Marco's crew and old friend of Naomi's,
her previous family,
is bitterly and flaunting Naomi's death to Drummer.
And that doesn't come till near the back half of the episode for Drummer. We start with Philip and Marco assuming that Naomi's dead.
Yeah.
And then we don't see them again.
Sin's death.
Yeah, and then we move on from them.
The fact that Marco blames Philip. It's just such a fuckhead move that it's of course he fucking does.
Do you believe Philip, in terms of he actually thinks that he saw her die, or do you think he's kind of covering up a bit more?
I think he's covering up because he doesn't know for certain, and he knows that if he says that Naomi might be alive, then Marco's gonna go after her, and he won't risk being right, and he won't risk being wrong.
It's hard to say, because that last sequence in the previous episode was such a overwhelming thing, a lot of information to be taken in, and how much could he see from his from his vantage point? But
I don't know if he saw anything, but I feel like he would doubt still, because he didn't see her body. He didn't see her dead. They didn't collect the body.
Yeah.
So there's room for doubt. And I feel like he is in a place where he would hold on to that little bit of doubt and be trying to protect it.
I think what's brilliant is Philip's, the portrayal from the actor is in this sweet spot in which he's trying to, you can see there's this almost eagerness to please Marco, but fearfulness as well of what will come. And just that general, blank-faced, neutral expression that the actor has for this character, in which it's actually kind of hard to read what's going on with this kid, because...
Yeah. He's a little bit of a golem in that way.
He's very much someone that we imbue stuff onto him, as do the characters, and that's great. It's been working really well, but in this instance, it's take it at just take it at bare bones face value. They both think she's dead, and they move on. They said, okay, she killed herself. Real bummer about that, but you know what's really sad? Our friend died. He got killed too, and it's your fault, Philip. And then, as you said, Drummer's story in the back half is also about thinking Naomi is dead, and Drummer reacting very, very much in a volatile fashion about it. And as much as I would love to say that I cared more, I haven't seen Drummer and Naomi interact for like 2 seasons, really. Because they didn't have anything in season 4, and we haven't really seen them in this season at all.
No,
and
it's just like not since Naomi abandoned Drummer.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like that was the last big thing with them.
Well, no. When Drummer was going to sacrifice herself to save Naomi and Holden in season 3 when she had to face off against Yoga, and then they stopped the ring from exploding and everything. Like, they had their big hoorah at the end of season 3, but then we've just had to be riding off of the coattails of that for 2 seasons now. And
it's a long time to try and sustain that, especially with how much other stuff has gone on with those characters individually, as well as the rest of the show.
And their bond, we didn't get to see.
We didn't feel it as much.
Well, I was going to say, we didn't get to see it on screen as strongly as some of the others.
We felt their chemistry as actors more than their relationship as characters.
DeWalt and Motang will remain here to continue the salvage.
You can't help her.
Watch me.
Naomi is not about that ship.
How would you know?
Because she's dead.
On paper, all of this has a lot of merit to it, but I'm watching it and it feels hollow.
It doesn't, for me, it's not so much that it's hollow, it doesn't get off the ground. Because, like, it's too heavy to fully get lift off, and it's not balanced in quite the right way, but all of the parts are doing their job, but it's like they're not working together in the way that they need to get lift off.
There's a potential great premise here that I wish The Expanse could have done, but it's not the type of show to give us this episode, which is, I would have liked to have seen an entire episode, a bottle episode of Naomi on the ship.
Say bottle episode
of Naomi on the ship trying to survive, and she's getting the transmissions from outside, and she's doing this, and she's running around finding little things. I would have loved to have seen that. We know shows can do that, clearly, like, of this era. It's not just, back in the day we used to have bottle episodes. No, I would have loved to have had that, because as it is, Naomi's stuff is, at best, minorly interesting. But for the majority of the runtime, it's just there. We keep cutting back to Naomi. Oh, it's time to watch Naomi suffer. That's what it is. Oh, it's time to watch Naomi suffer. And if there was a whole episode, or even just more of an episode dedicated to the time with Naomi in the ship, I would have loved to have had that sense of the mechanical engineer brain problem solver story. I love those type of things. I love those type of yarns, especially within a science fiction setting, of how are we going to get our way out of here? What can I do with what's around me? What kind of wires can I scrounge up? What kind of tools can I, makeshift into a solution? And that is in the episode, but it's so bare bones that every time we are cutting back to Naomi is just to see her suffer, and or just to see her fail and attempt to do those things that I usually would find just so exciting, just fall again flat. For what do you feel about that? Like, do you think that this series could ever give anything like that in terms of like that, like out of the box storytelling for an episode?
Wants to. I think it could, but I don't think it wants to.
What about within season 5? Because we had Churn, which was a fairly, laser focused on Amos. We still cut to other things, but it was still pretty much on him.
Yeah, like the weighting of the plots was a little bit more distinct when it came to that. It felt like the director and the production didn't believe that could be enough on its own, because they really lent into sort of the authenticity of the stress and like the limited dialogue and stripped back sound production and all of these things where I feel like they were like, we can't do this too long.
But
The audience is going to get bored if we keep at this too long. But we want to have it in here because it feels right and it makes sense and it's good TV. But it makes me think of, like, we've praised Space Above and Beyond for doing Who Monitors the Birds.
It would have been great if we could have had a Who Monitors the Birds type
And,
episode with
like,
Naomi.
That
just her
episode
on her own.
means so much in that series. It's so good. It's so distinctive. But they fought for that episode.
And it showed.
And they got punished for doing that episode. And I don't think a show that's just come back from cancellation and is on a new network in a new format and streaming as well as many other factors, is gonna go out on that limb.
I think they leave it for small segments in an episode rather than to take those big swings and make an episode have that type of standout quality. We did Babylon 5, and every once in a while they would give us those episodes like Intersections in Real Time, in which it's just two people in a room, black box theater, let's do it. And I think The Expanse is totally capable of it, but they leave it for small segments within an episode, such as the Epstein Drive and how that got created and how that was sprinkled throughout the entire episode. And it was like an interesting little short story, which I imagine really was in terms of the actual literature this comes from. And with Naomi just running around on the ship, then you come into questions that you are raising, which is, okay, so what's the priority here? Production. Okay, if we're going to talk about production, then I wish it was more. I wish there was more of a sense of a struggle than just we covered the actress in in some, and we spritzed her with, sweat to make it look like it was really hard for her, the character that is, because the ship doesn't have, it's just floating in space, right?
Yeah.
So why is she struggling with opening up this and opening up that when there shouldn't be any resistance from gravity?
No, I think it is just because her body is decimated from being in the hard vacuum. Like, she hasn't recovered from that experience. Her body is, in shock, sort of.
And I don't need it to be gruesome, but I wish it had more oomph to it, because there's that scene. I thought, okay, The Expanse, you're really going for it now. You're really going for it. When she stuck her hand, or she was trying to stick her hand through the grate to get the wrench or whatever it was. She retracts it, like, oh, I can't do it. I was expecting her to try again and shove it through, and you're going to have her scrape her hand up and fuck her hand up to get it through and pull it out. I thought we were going to go
Gerald's game.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah. And I don't need it to be brutal, but did you not feel that? Did you not think it was going to go in that direction a bit more?
Oh, no, I was like, they're going to pussy out.
Why? Because what else is there to... I don't know, what did you get out of Naomi's story in this episode? Other than at the end, she fucks with the communication.
She tells Holden she's in control.
And that was clever.
Yeah.
I liked how she timed it out. She learned the script that they had manufactured. She timed it. That was good. And I didn't immediately realize what she was going to do. I didn't immediately go, oh, she's going to do this, do this, do this. There was enough not told that it made it a bit more enticing to watch. But other than that, what else do you want to say about Naomi struggling to survive?
It was well done. It was tense in the moment. It did its job.
Why did the message change? Could someone be on the ship? Could it be Naomi?
It's
can't be. It's impossible. She's dead.
The criticism of it's functional, it moved along, it did its job, but things are stretched out is what we said a lot about season 4. And I think some of those things are rearing its ugly head up again within this episode. But it's not because, suddenly this episode dropped the ball. There are just things throughout the season that have come to this point, like the Rocinante. The tensions rising on the Rocinante and Holden being a little bit more ready to endanger them all because he wants to get his girlfriend back, or using the guise of, no, we have to find the proto-molecule. It's fine. It's functional. It does the job, but do you actually feel it?
No. It again, it's serviceable. It does its thing. It shows the thing. It moves the parts. It conveys the belt. It is a conveyor belt.
Not the belt of the show, but the conveyor belt. What do you feel? Like, when you're watching this episode and we cut to James Holden, what are your opinions on how things have gone to get us here?
I guess I'm a bit frustrated because we've made this point before where it feels like the show is resentful that they need him still. Like, that he's still the protagonist. And that disappoints me. Because we were so on board with him not that long ago. And even in a really shit season, we were still like, chugga chugga choo choo, Jim's the man.
He was an anchor. And season 5 just doesn't want to have him here. And I just say, just don't then. just shit or get off the pot with him. And with him in this actual episode, though, we're talking more about like season-long wide stuff, but like, what did he actually do in this episode? Can you recall? Like, what's the thing that you walk away from when it comes to James Holden
I
here?
can't. I was about to look at notes to remind me, but off the top of the dome, nope.
All I remember is Bull and Monica giving each other the side eye about him and his desire for Naomi and how that could lead them into dangers. And there is discussion about how there is no evidence of the proto-molecule in the area of the ship explosion, so it's probably still out there, and there's just a lot of stroking of chins of, where could it have gone? Was it on this ship in the first place? We would have been able to see if it stopped off and gave it to another ship. So where could it be? And do you have any thoughts on that?
No, because they're like, it was one of those things where it's like, well, it's not going to be on the fucking ship. I don't know how it's not on the ship, but it's not on that fucking ship.
It's not a good enough. It's not a good enough little mystery for me to want to even play with it. There are times where you get something like this in a story in which a shrug is given and, well, they'll explain it to me. And that's how I feel with all of James Holden's quest for the proto-molecule. They'll tell me eventually. I don't really have an opinion on it. It's just, we have to mention it, Rachel, because it happened in the episode. Like, there was time spent on this. And since there was time spent on it, did you garner anything out of it that you didn't garner from 3 episodes ago?
No. Thus, I don't even fucking remember what it was that he did.
Well, how about we raise your spirits, Rachel? We're being very negative. We are having a tough time, but you said that this was pretty good, that you had a great time with it.
No, I didn't.
You at the beginning, you were like, your opinion was, pretty good. You were much more positive than I. So How about
I
we...
didn't flat out say that I fucking hated it like you did.
Yeah, you seem a little bit more warm on it. So how about you tell us about the things going on with what is obviously the strongest part, which is Alex and Bobby. Those wonderful characters.
Why do you do things like that to me? You're meant to love me.
I do love you.
You're meant to bring happiness to my life.
I'm a nice man with happy feelings all the time.
Alex and Bobby hear the distress call and get sent to the ship.
Oh, they don't reach the ship yet.
No.
That's for another episode.
Yes.
But it raises the drama. It cranks everything up because now Naomi knows her friends are on the way and they could die because the ship is rigged to blow up when something comes near her. So Alex and Bobby, they're on the chopping block, Rachel. And no one knows to warn them. They're out there trying to find their friend, but in so doing, it could cost them everyone's lives in the situation. Doesn't that make you get a little bit choked up?
No.
I have a question for you, because obviously this is all a bit of a laugh of Alex and Bobby have been just here in the season. They had potential and then they've wasted it throughout the season. But I know this maybe is more of a predictions question, but I just want to sit on this for a second because there's nothing else to do with Bobby and Alex. If either of them died and or both of them died, would you feel something about it? Like, what would
I
you
would
get?
feel something about it, and that would be a little bit of sadness and then relief. Because they feel like dead weight, and we wouldn't have the dead weight anymore if they were dead.
I like Alex as a character. I think he's very fun. But I also think he is one of the ones that is the most, nuanced. He's a very human character. Out of the crew of the Rocinante, he's the most, neurotic, kind of fucked up, weird character, but in a way that is deeply, deeply uncomfortable because you could easily be Alex more than you could be Holden, more than you could be Naomi, more than you could be Amos, of course. And I think he brings out so much in other characters. He was also a lifeline for us in the fourth season. And I would be upset if he died. I would be more upset if he died because of this plot that he's been in, because he hasn't gotten really anything to do. If he was on the chopping block and they got rid of him after having him do a really good arc of a story, then, I'll be upset, but there will be a sense of satisfaction because, well, he went out on a high note. Even if it's a tragic death, it was he went on a high note because of the story. Currently, if he died, I would be furious because he would go out on a bum note. He would go out on a Bobby plot, which is the worst thing you could do, because that's all I'm thinking about they're teasing us with the potential that these characters could die. And I don't believe it, but if they did do it, if they actually pulled the trigger there, what would be the consequences of that for us, for these long-term characters?
We wouldn't have any Martians in the plot anymore.
You're always bucking up against the idea that they will never actually follow through on the dangers that they promise. And so does that hamper something like Bobby and Alex?
Yeah,
in the thick of it.
They killed Miller and they killed him twice. They bothered to kill him twice and they haven't killed anybody else.
They haven't killed any, big wig protagonists we like in that way. Miller sacrificed himself that's a difference too. He wasn't taken out by something suddenly. He wasn't Game of Thrones killed off. He made a decision both times. And I think that means something. While a plot like this is makes a promise, whether it'll keep it or not, that the characters could die from not very heroic means, like, oh, they just ambushed.
They feel like they're being put in danger, not that they're unsafe.
Jetsamoka, this is Alex Kamal on the Razorback. Remain Screaming Firehawk for now. Naomi, we heard your call. We are burning hard for you now. So y'all just hang tight. No! We'll be docking with you before you know it.
I don't know if you feel the same, but I thought the drama side of this was great. It was probably the stronger part of the entire episode. This is one in which I think it succeeds not only because of what we were given in the singular one, but because of what has been transpiring previously. Her feeling so broken up about Naomi may feel a little bit less for us, but I still think it does have something to it. But all of the other things when it comes to drama as well are just strengthening the character's psyche and how she's falling apart. This family that she's forged and we've seen her spend time with is starting to tear each other apart. They're not on the same wavelength anymore. Their unity
they're not
is
like the Rossi.
They're not like the well, yeah, and even then the Rocinante, they're no longer physically with each other, but they are still with each other. While Drummer, then her people have a brief moment of being one again, having a laugh, and then it's snuffed out because everyone realizes in that moment that those days are long gone. They're an echo. They are nothing but memories. We will never have those again. And if we do, it will only be for a second. Things have changed. People's viewpoints have changed. I thought this was good. I really enjoyed this. What about you? What did you think of drummer's stuff?
Yeah, that was not quite heartbreaking, but very heartfelt. They have that moment of tension, that moment of levity, and then the tension just returns, and it returns so quickly, and they're all trying to get back the magic, and they know that the magic isn't there anymore, and they're all trying to deal with that reality or reject that in their own way. And it's really interesting that they have managed to do that with a crew that we have not spent that much time with.
They are well-defined characters. I may not know their names, but I can tell you from just looking at them what their attitudes were and how they have changed. So I think they've done an expert job of making Drummer's family understandable, and it's upsetting to see them go from these people who all know one another to now they're kind of strangers, and they're lying to themselves or they're choosing sides. Like Drummer's girlfriend, her main squeeze, she's accepted what's going on. She's the one that's trying to get Drummer and the others to understand, to make compromises, to reshape the narrative of their lives. Drummer is angry and pissed off and she doesn't want to do it. And I think what's interesting of a touch is her lover, although wants it to be this way, you can still see there's a hesitance there. She's not walking up to Drummer and putting her foot down and saying, this is how it is, you need to straighten up and get with the program. You can see she wants to, though. But she's incapable of doing it because she still has feelings for Drummer.
She still wants to protect Drummer.
And what about the other crew characters? We get little moments of touching base with them and their opinions. Like, we get the ones who are sticking their head in the sands, we're just salvaging. We're just doing our part.
I loved her line where it's like, we're picking the bones clean.
We're scavengers. Well, if it wasn't our job to be doing this, then we would be the ones that are the bodies here getting our stuff picked off of us. So there's nothing to complain about, Rachel.
No.
It's
us or them,
us or
maybe.
them.
It's us or them.
And then there are the ones who are just totally on board, like, yep, fuck everyone else.
Marco!
Fuck it. We're on the right side of things here. And it's all going to be fine. And then,
That's interesting.
what about Marco's right-hand woman that he's put on the ship? What do you think about this character? Because we've only got to know her through hating Naomi. And just being like, I hate Naomi. Now we get to see more of her outside of that, but we still touch base of why she hates Naomi.
It's just like, it's another character that rocks up to be hated. Which the Expanse does frequently. And I'm at the point where I'm not fussed.
They're trying to squeeze more, but there isn't much that they haven't already done with her. What she revealed in this episode is like, yeah, now we know more information, but I'm not actually learning more. Yes, I now have more to fill out on my internal Wikipedia about your backstory, but I already knew this deep down because it's so obvious. That's why you're reacting this way. That's why you're like this. And it is just something that is there as an antagonistic foe, something that is corrupting and poisoning the drummer fleet, as it was called early on.
Yeah.
And I like the bit where she sat in the chair.
Yeah. And she's unabashed about it. She's like, yeah, I'm fucking sitting here.
I thought
You
she
got
was...
a fucking problem with that?
Yeah, I thought she was going to do the, I've got to get out of the chair, or when someone sees her, she gets out. No, she stays in that chair and she's commanding now. The power has shifted to her. She knows what's going on. She knows, we killed, like, Naomi's dead. We're using her ship as a trap for the Rocinante. And you better fucking get in line with that. You better suck it up, sweetheart, because that's how things go under Marco's rule. And we even have it already where they're scavenging off of the enemies of Marco, the ones who voted to kill him last season. Seems like the Free Navy is taking care of those folks out there. But she tries to pitch it as, no, we gave them the offer to join,
They attacked us.
They attacked us. We were just defending ourselves. What else were we supposed to do? We're not pussies.
What? Why would you even question that?
Why even bother putting that up as a ruse?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Or is that like what she thinks happened? Because it's that thing of like,
she's indoctrinated so much, it's hard to tell.
she is such a stooge for Marco, but at the same time, she is
Simp,
slimy.
perhaps.
Yeah, sure. But she herself is slimy and villainous and
Yes.
much more in the know than that. She's shocked when they start to realize that maybe Naomi is on the ship. And she's her and Drum and all those people are the ones figuring that out.
Yes, it's them that realize that and hear the message.
Marco probably hasn't even bothered to hear it yet because he's like, well, the plan's worked. We got that out there.
Naomi's
He's
dead,
egotistical.
why would I be listening?
Yeah, it's egotistical. It'll work because I'm that good. I'm sure we'll cut back to Marco and like how he finds out, because he's got to find out that things aren't going to go his favor, especially with her listening. And if she's actually going to accept that Naomi's on the ship, because she's in disbelief. No, Naomi's dead. Naomi kind of just walked away again and got away with it again. That's not how it works. Marco's got a big plan.
Out of a bigger plan that you need not know about.
You are lying.
I don't care if you believe me. The truth is, Naomi Nagata was a traitor to the belt. And now she's dead.
You want to talk about Ashford's bottle? it got drunk in the episode.
That's all. That's all that needs to be said about that.
No. Like they did it. They gave us that moment at the end of season 4. We came back to it earlier this season, and she didn't drink the bottle. But now she's angry. Drummer's anger has arrived, and she only drinks when she's angry, not when she's sad. And so she finally opens it up and starts just chugging it down as like a nearly season-long tease, set up and payoff thing. I think it's been really well handled. And as people who liked Ashford, it's kind of like saying goodbye to him again, because this is like the last piece of him in a weird way.
Yeah, it is. Like she was holding on and she was holding out hope, and now she doesn't have that anymore, so she doesn't need to hold on to the bottle.
It meant that things could be better. They were going to drink it as a celebration. They were going to have it as something to know that the future is bright. And she didn't drink it earlier in the season because of all the reasons we talked about in that episode. And now here she is. She's angry. There's no future. She's pissed off. And is she going to do something reckless? Where does Drummer go from here?
Drummer is going to join the standoff against Marco that's going to happen probably next season.
Or she has to face her own crew, because
oh yeah, that will happen first.
There's no loyalty anymore.
It's broken down.
It's broken down.
Do you want to well, I think we will save the UN discussion for predictions, because I feel like most of the stuff that I have to say about that is what I think is going to happen next.
You didn't get much out of the UN side of things, did you?
No. The Admiral is guilty and wants to go on the offensive. Who would have thought?
It's about retribution, revenge. They are grappling with, should we attack civilian targets? Because they attacked us. They killed civilians. And the OPA / the Free Navy / the Belt are not an organized military force in the way that Mars is.
They don't have a military thing to attack.
And Marco knows this, and he's hiding behind civilians. This is something that is not a new concept. Again, the OPA has been compared by us and obviously many to the IRA, but also we see with many terrorist organizations this type of thing be the quandary of how do you fight back against them when they don't have that type of base just to blow up or land to conquer in the same way. They are in amongst civilians, and if you attack the civilians, you are just helping radicalize them to the cause that you're fighting against in the first place. And we get to know more about the Secretary General, the new Secretary General, who was a meek little guy, and we see his insane speech. That speech that is just riling everyone up and is about hunting them down and getting our own and Earth first, and we've got to make sure that they pay in a river of blood. And then after the speech is done, he walks off and he's like, did I do a good job? I don't know. I think I came off all right. And it's that duality is interesting. Like how does that make one react to a person? Because we've seen Christian have to put on that public persona as well, and we've seen her for most of the show have to kind of come out of that belief system, while this is someone who he's having to step into it for the first time, and he's really good at it in the speech, but we see as a behind-the-scenes politician, he's uncomfortable with having to be amoral.
And I wish that I gave a shit, but I don't really. Because he feels very disposable to me. He feels like he's gonna die.
Well, what ways does this episode and or series make him have that aura and or make you not connect with him?
I think it's a little bit because we saw his character coming from so far away. And he doesn't have enough that makes me think that he's gonna stick around.
Well, it's not even about the sticking around, it's about what they're doing with him now and what he offers up in terms of philosophical and ethical quandaries. Because he is not a tactician. He's not a career politician in the way Christian is. He is flickering between the Admiral and Christian's wisdom. He's just a schmuck. And he wants to do the right thing, but to do the right thing may be to do wrong things. And if you were in his shoes, what would you do? And we see the burden weigh heavy on him, but at the same time, he has to be the leader of everything, which is the rub there. And I don't know, I find him a lot more interesting because he's dangerous in a way that we haven't seen with the other leaders of Earth, where they are cunning and ruthless and they're thinking about themselves. Like with the previous Secretary General, with him, where he was worried about his legacy, or with Aaron Wright, where, he was a, power-hungry guy who's doing it for Earth, so he says, but is he actually doing it for himself? Well, this is a person who the danger comes from inexperience. And can you blame him?
Yeah, the fact that he is seemingly so easy to manipulate and is still swinging between these two very distinct positions.
And the Admiral, how much of it is he thinks in the military way of they punched us, we punched them back? How much of it is actually that, or he's embarrassed and feels guilty because he didn't follow through like he should have to prevent this in the first place?
I read it as guilt.
And does that make him, again, bring it back, does that make him better or worse than the alternative?
It depends on you, how high your morals are, I guess.
Because we had someone like Wynne, right? Admiral Wynne. He was insane, and he was played like a mustache-twirling bad guy, but he was like the representation of that military mindset of like, you fuck with us, we fuck you right back. And the bigotry that comes from the military-industrial complex thing going on and the othering. While the Admiral here, he's taking it so personally because he could have prevented this. He could have done more, but he didn't because he was afraid. And is that more deplorable than just hiding behind or utilizing the military mindset of like, well, we have to strike back? Because it is revenge.
It's selfish.
And I think that makes him much better of a character because he was Christian's ally.
I think it makes him better as a character and worse as a person.
He's definitely on the bad side of things because he is not in agreement with Christian, and that usually means you're a bad guy in Christian plots because she's so wise and so clever. But it's about them having to strike back. But he had this quote that just, sends shivers down the spine. But we see this in real life. We see this within this series be brought up again and again and again. But it's not the military's job to assess morality. It's not its job to do that. It's our job to defend. It's our job to secure. It's our job to attack. That's what he says. He says, like, it's not my job to assess the morality of the situation. It's my job to fucking protect us. What is your feelings towards that? Because, we've seen that be
a lousy defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lousy defense. Like, is it realistic? Yeah. But also, you should be judged for the morality and the legality of your decisions, especially when they are going to cost people their lives.
What is Earth's move? In something like this, with a force like the Free Navy / OPA, how do they react to the attack that they've had when the people that attack them do not have a way to be attacked that doesn't cost civilians? Or it's harder to do that, especially with a whole entire planet or country or group or people, or even you yourself needing that validation of blood in return. When civilization is gone, are we still civil? And this is one in which these are the people trying to build civilization, maintain it, dictate it, lead it. And they're the ones that are saying, fuck being civil. Except for Christian.
Yeah.
Christian brings her career and her experience and her past of being the defender of Earth, and she states it outright, states it clearly, and the Admiral and her are clearly not eye to eye.
We really feel like she learned from the mistakes that she made last season during her campaign of losing track of her priorities.
And the dicey moves that she's made in the past, like with blowing up that Mars base, it was the correct move, and yet it can be used against you. Well,
yeah,
you did this.
It was the best choice at the time, but that didn't make it the right choice in this other situation, and I don't know if it was the right choice in the long run either. Like, she's still very much grappling with that and not dealing with it in absolutes, which is definitely, thinking back to season 1, how she would have done it at that stage.
And is everything comparable? Okay, so she blew up that military Mars base. Is that the same thing as this? What they're suggesting, which is to attack civilian targets. No, it's not, but you can draw the line between the two and said, well, you did that, so that means I can do this. And that's how people justify so many horrible things, because, well, the past dictates the future. So we have to follow along this line, and if we don't, they'll just keep coming at us. They're the enemy after all. There's no way out of it, and it just proves Marco's point. Like, Marco's point is he can do this, and they'll get angry and make these pig-headed moves that will just further his cause.
If we start murdering innocent Belters, we'll radicalize every Belter who does not support Inoris. Then we won't be fighting a faction anymore. We'll be fighting the entire belt.
We already are fighting the entire belt. They're just not wearing uniforms.
Which is another reason why this shouldn't even be considered an option.
Well, you want to talk about your boy Amos.
He makes it to Baltimore. He meets up with his brother.
Brother, in the platonic sense. They're not biologically related, right? They're just platonic. Like they grew up on the streets together. They're brothers in that way.
It's very straightforward with Amos. They pee. They get to Baltimore. They decide to leave Baltimore because Clarissa has a plan. And she gets a really neat monologue. And I enjoyed it while it was happening. And I feel like what she has to say is important for the themes of the show, of sort of death and rebirth within your lifetime, and her realizing how true that also is for Amos, hearing that he used to have a different name.
Used to have a different life, as she used to have a different life.
In all of those lives, he's loved tequila.
Oh, yes. And we actually had, when they was just Amos and Clarissa, when they were together, they found all of those dead bodies of the old people.
After they peed.
After they peed, they found all of these bodies that were bagged up.
Think of why it would be this way, and hoping that it was mercy, not malice,
Which,
and wondering how much of it was and how much that reflects what the world is just going to be like for the time being.
and with them being older people, it's just bringing forward what Clarissa is saying. The old is gone, right? The old ways, the old people, the old you is dead. The old world that we lived in is no longer here. We have to move on. We have to become something better, something new. Because Eric, he does not want to leave. That's the interesting wrinkle, is
Yeah,
he's happy,
well,
he's content,
It
he's got to...
makes complete sense because he built up his empire. He was exactly where he dreamed of being. And now it's washed away. It's all gone. And it's hard to give up something that you fought so hard for.
Yeah.
And something that is such a big part of your identity as well.
It's the churn. That's what he thinks. He's like,
Yeah,
well,
he's
this
like,
is just more of the
I
churn.
thought it was just the churn, but this is different. The rules have changed, which is what Amos keeps on saying.
Clarissa challenges something we've seen Amos carry throughout the series, and Eric is still holding on to, which is that churn idea, which is this thing of you have to keep suffering, you have to keep being burdened, you have to endure to survive, because you'll make it out on the other side, or you won't. And Clarissa,
Bottom or top.
Bottom or top.
Or like everything in the middle's just the churn.
And Clarissa points out, like, well, death's one of those options, right? You've died. This woman in prison told me that she knew her kids were dead, but it doesn't matter because, you know, she's already dead. We're all dead. We just don't realize it yet, and we've got to become something else. And that's what sways Eric and Amos. You see, it also impacts Amos as well to hear this. It's not just, well, you see, Clarissa's old ways and rough and tumble things have managed to sway the one guy in this episode. No.
It means more than that. It means more than that.
And her past, though, is going to be the key because...
Yeah, the fact that she's Mao's daughter and that she vacationed in this spot and that she knows that all of these houses have this thing.
Mm-hmm. She has a benefit, a resource. She has the privilege of her previous life to help them now, but at the same time is telling them to leave theirs behind. But she's had to as well. She lost out on so many of those privileges in prison.
Yeah, and I really like the way that the actress conveys at the start of the episode that relief and anger that the sort of tranquilizers,
the blockers,
the blockers that she was on have gotten out of her system, because it's just like now that she's out of the fog, she realized how much she was kind of lacking, or like that was taken away from her, because when it's not there and it's just numb, it's not felt in the same way. And I feel like her physicality, particularly her expression, conveyed that really well. At least that was my read on her performance in that scene.
Well, that's Clarissa's character. She wants to be something, but she doesn't know who she is. And she has had that taken away from her, and she's taken away from herself.
She doesn't know how to define herself for herself.
So when we met her, she painted herself as the bad guy. I need to take revenge at all costs, and it doesn't matter the consequences of my actions. And then you started to see that humanity bleed in, and she started to realize, and then she stood up and did the right thing. But then she had to face the consequences, and the consequences of that was what we saw in season 4 and throughout season 5, which is she was stripped of her personhood. She had all of these things taken away from her because she was a monster to them. But she's not a monster because she's afraid. And in this episode, this is the first time in a while we've got to see Clarissa Mao as a person who's had those shackles removed from her. She has the ability to taste, she has the ability to feel, she has the ability...
next stage of Clarissa.
And because of what we've been seeing her go throughout these seasons, this is the first time in which she will get to choose for herself without being clouded by all of these other reasons.
Burdened by her past.
Burdened by her past or her need to impress people or whatever it is, to choose who she is for the first time, really, because she was choosing to be what she thought her dad wanted or something better than Julie. And then in this season, we've seen her having to just suffer through the side effects of her imprisonment. And so it's nice. And so we're going to see in the next episode, most likely, them go to where those rockets launch off and leave Earth, perhaps. Or maybe some troubles will go along, like maybe some troubles will happen and get in their way, and we'll have to see. Now, is there anything else you want to say about this episode, or do you want to rate it on our system?
I'm ready to rate. I think it's going to be a quick one. We rate things on a scale of yum or yum yum. Yum being bad and yum yum being good. And I rate this episode a yum.
Yum.
I rate this episode a yum.
Yum.
It just isn't good enough. The other episodes we've been getting have been fantastic, or they've been deep. There's been a lot of hefty stuff. There's been some great character work, themes, messaging, things that get the brain and the heart going. And this just put the brakes on all of that. And it's not even the episode's fault entirely. It's because there are so many things that have been lingering throughout the season that are just bunched up in this one. And it just is
feels like it's a
dissatisfying.
real dip before we head into the climax of the season.
I hope that we rise again in the next episode. And I see why this is one of the lowest rated episodes we've had since
weak.
season 1.
It's really weak.
It has some of the pitfalls of season 1, but many of the ones from season 4, which for some reason all of those still rate higher than this. And that's the truly baffling thing. But
Want to know what we have to put our hope on? What is the title of next week's episode of The Expanse?
the next episode is the penultimate episode of season 5, episode 9. And forgive if I am mispronouncing this. It's, it's a place. It's a lake that they're going to go to for
Yes.
Clarissa. It's how do I pronounce this? Winnipesaukee? Something like that. If I'm getting it wrong, look, kill me. Just put a gun in my mouth and kill me now. I listened to a pronunciation or two, and I'm dead in my mouth. What do you think will be happening in the penultimate episode?
I think they're gonna make it there. I wonder if Gao has also escaped prison.
Mao?
Gao's dead.
You think? Maybe she's not. Maybe she's just come back with a bit of a scar. So, what do you think is going to be going on with the Amos stuff? You just speculated maybe Mao somehow broke out of prison.
I feel like she's gonna have to confront a person from her past in the process of trying to get the shuttle. And I just think it's going to be her dad. Or maybe we get some flashbacks of her dad with her once we get there. I think that's going to be a chunk of it. I think the Rossi and Alex heading towards Naomi is going to be another. chunk of it.
So the screaming
And
firehawk, as
I
he called it.
I think Marco is going to do something that really pushes and tests Philip.
I think the next episode is going to have the story be about, yes, the location in which Clarissa and Amos and Eric and his gang of bandits are going to try and take one of the ships, but there's going to be a force there that's going to stop them. Maybe not Mao himself, but Mao's men, because the company still exists in some way. The corporation still exists in some fashion.
Kind of collapsed.
Maybe you're right, but okay. So
I thought we got a line
or
about
militia of some sort. Something's going to be opposing them because you need something. They can't just walk over there and get on the ship, and you need to show off Amos being a badass and Clarissa having her mods and being able to fuck stuff up. But will they actually get off Earth by the end of the episode, or is that something that season finale is worthy of?
I think it's going to be finale.
Naomi has managed to send that message or disrupt the message.
Alter it.
But will Jim understand that? Will Alex understand that? We'll have to wait and see. But
I think it's going to be Drummer.
Drummer, yeah, that would be good. And I think there's going to be a bit of an uprising / insurrection on Drummer's ship, and it's going to end in sadness, in which maybe
that's going to be that. I think
they kill
somebody's
off
going to die.
Marco's person, but now the crew themselves are left there and they're fighting one another because they are not on the same page about things. And I think that the UN Secretary General does authorize the attack on the palace, and that's what cements Marco as the leader of the belt once and for all. And that's where we kind of end off with the season of Earth did strike back in a way that has only made it so that he is truly unstoppable. So those are my thoughts on what will be happening in the next episode. And I guess a little bit of a tease of things to come. I don't have much more in terms of further predictions of the series. This didn't really push anything further.
The UN is going to strike at civilians.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to make that choice. I think it's going to fail for one reason or another, but I think they're going to make the choice.
I think it'll be successful, and Christian is going to put a decree a motion to kick out the Secretary General for making a move without a agreement of the council of whatever, because because we'll have to see that if he's going to do it sneakily, which I don't know. Do you have any series-wide predictions, or did this just not really move anything along?
Nothing new.
Nothing new. And that is our discussion of this week's episode of The Expanse.
Thank you for listening. If you want to find us on social medias, you can find the links in the description, or search yumyumpod or yumyumpodcast. If you want to check out our Patreon, if you're listening to this on the main feed, you might have the rest of the series ready to go. They're waiting for you.
As well as so much other bonus content that doesn't make it to the main feed.
Ryan, sorry, we really got to go.
We've got to go.
We need to vacuum.
Oh,
you need to vacuum, remember?
Oh my god, yes, I need to vacuum because my friends are coming over. My friends
our hard out was 18 minutes ago.
Oh,
You've just been ignoring me.
Jeez. Oh wait, Rachel. Oh my god. Yeah, we gotta go vacuum real hard because I'm getting text messages from Ashanti. She's asking if the kids can come over because thank God they're here too. And Havelock, he's bringing the girlfriend over. I don't know. I'm not a real big fan of her. I can't not.
I'm not looking forward to that just because, I really don't want to call her Wiggy to her face.
I do get distracted that she wears a wig sometimes in some roles that she performs in her line of work. And I'm sorry to say it, but hunky marine guy cannot bring any pancakes with him. They're out. They're out of batter for that. I'm just so sorry.
Wait. Has the gaunt belter bailed on us? Like, I know that he usually does it more last minute, but has he said anything to you?
Well, the only way I'll find out is if I tune into the radio, because he's busy at the moment hosting the show. He'll let us know over the radio waves if he's going to make it.
See you then. Well, voila.